Okay, so this presentation is a presentation that I made in San Diego in June 2019, and it's understanding the techniques to update a schedule. So a little bit about myself. I've got an honours degree I obtained in the UK. I'm a certified cost engineer through AACE International. I'm also a certified Prince 2 practitioner and a few other qualifications I won't bore everybody with. I've worked in project controls for a large number of years in a range of industries. I'm a civil engineer. I've worked in the dam construction, pipelines, railways, aircraft hangars, and all sorts of things. I have a company in Melbourne called Primer Skills, which is an Australian-based company that offers training services for Microsoft Project P6 and Astor Power Project. I've written and published over 50 books I started off writing books on short track and P3, then I went to primarily P6 and Microsoft Project, and recently I put a book out on Astor Power Project, and these are all available for companies to buy the PowerPoint slideshow and run their own courses if they want to. So introduction, in the Western world, the building and construction industries is dominated basically by Microsoft Project, probably by far the largest share, but probably the least professional users. There are obviously some very good users, but then you find that it's next dominated by Oracle Primavera P6, and you'll find that Astor Power Project is well represented in Europe and gaining acceptance outside Europe. A properly updated schedule is critical to the effective management of a project, and there are three techniques that I've identified that are used to update a schedule. And when I searched through AACE literature, I found that they don't really identify the three different methods. So I define them as unimpacted, impacted with actuals, and impacted live. And what I'm going to explain is how these three different techniques differ, and then how the three software packages handle each of the three techniques. So moving on, unimpacted. So if you create an unimpacted updated schedule, so you've got a schedule and you are therefore going to enter just the percent complete against the activities to denote the progress. So no actual starts and actual finishes are assigned or changed during the update process. So you don't add any variations. All you do is enter the percent complete against the activities, and this provides the status of each activity but does not generate a revised end date for the project, and obviously can't be used for claims and things. The next one I talk about is impacted with actuals. This is the technique where actual dates are assigned in the past to completed activities and to the complete portions of in-progress activities. Unstarted activities and incomplete portion of in-progress activities are scheduled in the future. New activities can be added to reflect scope change and added as appropriate, and then the schedule is rescheduled, revised, and you have a revised end date. So this is the technique that conforms to the AACE International recommended practices for statusing and updating a schedule, and it's really the only method that AACEI recognizes. Then there's impacted live. So with this technique, the completed activities are manipulated so they are scheduled when they actually occurred. So the schedule is live and it recalculates. And therefore you can't use the software inbuilt fields such as percent complete, actual duration, actual start, and actual finish. And in-progress activities are adjusted so they start when they actually start and finish when they're planned to finish, while unstarted activities are scheduled into the future and scope changes added as necessary. So I've identified three distinct methods that I've seen used in the construction industry. So the aim of this presentation is to outline the three techniques that are used to update a schedule. I'm going to explain the advantages and disadvantages of each method, and I'm going to look at how Microsoft Project, Oracle Primavera P6, and Astor Power Project support each of these techniques. So first of all, I want to outline the three techniques to update a schedule. I'm going to talk about unimpacted, then I'm going to talk about impacted with actuals and impacted live, and I'm going to use an Excel spreadsheet, so it's not demonstrating any software package, but it's just using highlighted bars on an Excel spreadsheet. So first of all, I'm talking about unimpacted. So this is an unimpacted schedule. You can see that this is what P6 calls the data date. Microsoft Project call it the status date. Astor Power Project call it the report date. But this is the date or date and time that you're recording progress. So we can see that this activity is 90% complete, and we have incomplete work in the past. This one is 30% complete, and we have incomplete work in the past. And this is 10% complete, and we have complete work that is in the future. So a baseline is not set. The data date can be displayed on the Gantt chart if you wish. The activity percent complete is assigned to tasks. No dates are changed. The progress may be obviously displayed on the task if the software allows you to do that. Some packages won't. So let's talk a little bit more about this process. When you observe the picture below, obviously activity A has incomplete work in the past, which is not possible. You can't go back and do that work last week. All right, so it's not possible to be able to complete that work in the past. Activity B is behind time, and obviously activity C has completed work in the future. It's not possible to get in your TARDIS, go into the future and do the work. So first of all, this schedule may not be used to manage a project because you can't tell people when they've got to do the work, and it can't be used for delay analysis. The next one I want to talk about is the basis of how impacted with actuals work. So to update a schedule with this technique, a baseline is set, and that's represented by these black bars here. Completed activities have an actual start and an actual finish set when they actually start and actually finish. So you can see this activity started a couple of days late and finished a few days late. This one started a bit late, and we've done this much work. So these are the completed work activities have an actual start and an actual finish. This one has an actual start and an actual duration. In progress activities have their remaining duration scheduled, so you can see when they're going to finish, and unstarted activities here are rescheduled. You can also see that this activity here I've put split, so these are going to be non-work periods where the contractor is not going to be on site. Some products allow splits and some don't. And obviously if you want a scope change may be added to this program, which may add a delay to the end date. As I said before, multiple splits in some software can be added or assigned for non-contiguous work in some software packages. So the impacted with actuals technique conforms with the AACE or AACE International Recommended Practice for Updating Schedules. It results in the software being used in the way that most software is designed to be used. So most software is designed to have an actual start and an actual finish, an actual duration and a remaining duration, and reschedule the end date. It records when activities actually start and actually finish, which is essential for historical records and claims assessment. It reforecasts when incomplete or in progress activities will take place. So you can actually give this schedule to your contractors and tell them when you want them to do the work. It demonstrates impacts on the schedule resulting from delays and changes in productivity. Out of sequence progress occurs when a successor activity starts before the driving predecessor activity with a finish to start relationship. So for example, let me move on. So out of sequence progress occurs when a successor activity starts before the driving predecessor activity with a finish to start relationship has finished. Most software has options to decide how the incomplete portions of the successor activity is calculated when it has commenced before the predecessor is complete. The functions have different names and operate differently in each software. So you find in P6, Astor and Microsoft Project, they have functions which are similar, but they operate differently. So let's have a look at out of sequence progress. This schedule here has been updated with out of sequence progress, and you can see that this activity has been split because the predecessor, originally this had a finish to start relationship. The predecessor has started and it split the activity. So this is what's often called retained logic. And then this activity here, you can see it's the same schedule, but this activity has not been split. And you'll see here, this activity has also been split, but this activity has not been split. So you get a lot of difference in the way the schedule calculates. If you use retain logic, which is the P6 term, then you end up with a longer schedule than if you use what P6 calls progress override. And therefore you need to decide whether you want to turn this option on or off in your schedule. When out of sequence logic has not been acknowledged, then if you want, you can extend the remaining durations of activities to show the progress that you expect to achieve. So what I've done here is we haven't got splits, so we're not using retain logic, we're using out of sequence progress, and we've extended the durations of the activities. So these activities here now have the same finish date as these activities with splits. So you can mimic out of sequence progress in a number of different ways with software. Obviously, once you have this environment, you'll find that the duration % complete will calculate differently, and depending on the software options, you may end up with different total float. And you'll find with out of sequence progress, different software packages calculate different float, and it's quite interesting when you start modeling these different options with different software packages. Moving on to what impacted live is, what happens with impacted live is that when you update a project, you don't put an actual start and an actual finish in. You actually edit the schedule, so you change the relationship. So you have a finish to start with a negative lag, you have a finish to start with a negative lag, and you change the duration. So you end up with a live schedule that's recalculated, which the activities in the past are scheduled when they took place, and the activities in the future are where you plan to finish them. Obviously, a baseline is set and displayed. The software inbuilt actual and % complete fields, so the actual start and actual finish, are not used. The data date may be represented by a curtain or vertical line. Calendars, logic, and activity durations are edited, so the actual start and actual finish dates represent the actual or planned start and finish dates. Multiple splits may be added if the software supports multiple splits. So you'll find that Microsoft Project Asta does support multiple splits in the past and the future. P6 does not. It only allows the suspend and resume, but you can model that other ways if you want to. Scope changes may be added, and this schedule should result in the same dates as an impacted with actual schedule. So, as I said, some software allow the splitting of activities, and this one is showing where we have splits in activities. And software that does not allow the splitting of an activity, what you can do is you can actually add two activities. So we've got B1 representing that activity and that part of the activity, and B2 representing that part of the activity. So if you want to represent multiple splits in products like P6, you have to actually add multiple activities. It's probably the easiest way. Some people also use calendars and that sort of thing. So this results in the baseline bars only being related to the first activity and not the second activity. So this is the baseline of that activity, but it's not related to this one. So you do end up with a little confusion with the baselines. So that's talking about the different techniques. What I thought I'd do is go through the advantage and disadvantage of each technique and then start asking some questions or answering some questions. So the advantages of an unimpacted live, first of all, it's a simple, particularly with Microsoft Project, little training is used with this technique, and the software supports this technique. In actual fact, a lot of people I know, they just print the schedule out, stick it on the wall, and then they mark the % complete against the bar on the wall each week, and then they draw zigzag lines to show the progress. This technique allows the observation of progress against a plan. It clearly identifies which work is ahead of plan and which is behind. And it hides slippage from the customer or the client, which some companies like to do. The disadvantages are that the incomplete work may be scheduled in the past and the complete work in the future. further affecting other related incomplete work. So it's not something you can use to manage a project. It cannot effectively be used to manage work when the project is not running according to schedule. It does not generate a revised completion date on the current status or performance to date, and it cannot be used for time impact analysis or other evaluation of schedule changes, because the actual dates and the actual durations will be incorrect. So basically the only use of this is to show progress to date and whether you're ahead or behind schedule, and it doesn't serve many other purposes, but a large number of customers that I have who I run Microsoft project courses for use this technique. So let's have a look at impacted with actuals. This is where you're using the software generally as it's designed to be used, and you are complying with AACE international standard, the standard for updating a schedule. So it informs with the recommended practice. It uses software in the way it's been designed. It may be used to manage a project because incomplete work is scheduled in the future where you expect to complete the work. It generates a revised project finish date for the project. It may be used for extensions of time and delay analysis, and this technique for updating the schedule supports window analysis, half step, and other forensic techniques used to analyze project delays. So there's many advantages of using this. What are the disadvantages? Well, the as-built critical path for completed activities is not generated because all the products I know, which are P6, Project and AACE, do not show which of those activities have float or do not have float, because they have actual start and actual finish, which override the float calculation and override constraints and logic. Therefore, the total float and critical path are no longer calculated for completed work after the finish date is applied to an activity, and therefore the impact of delays to the critical path may not be clearly visible. Going on to the impacted live. What's the advantages of impacted live? So if you're impacting live, this is where you're manipulating the schedule. You're not putting actual starts and actual finishes dates, and you're not using the software as it's designed to be used. This may be used to manage a project during the construction and planning phase, construction updating phase, as all incomplete work is scheduled into the future. It generates a revised finish date of the project. The critical path is displayed for both complete and incomplete work. Changes to the as-built critical path from the baseline critical path may easily be observed, particularly when you've got a software package which shows whether the baseline bars are on the critical path or not. And the technique allows both the customer contract delays to be removed from the as-built schedule, and the whole schedule will recalculate for delay and acceleration analysis. This is similar to using an as-built, a collapsed as-built for forensic schedule evaluation technique. So what are the disadvantages? Well, it's not accepted in many contracts. It goes against the CPM calculation process that most software packages are designed to be using, creating the following issues. The software data date does not function. Resources may not have actual remaining units and costs assigned. The inbuilt software actual start, actual finish, actual duration, percent completes are not utilized. Out of sequence progress functions may not be used, and a vastly higher skill level is used than normally updating a schedule. How software packages handle each technique. So what I do is I explain how Microsoft Project handled the three techniques: Oracle Primavera P6 and AACE Power Project. So unimpacted in Microsoft Project, Microsoft Project is almost designed to use this technique. It's very simple and is the most natural technique for untrained users to update a schedule. Microsoft Project by default does not force incomplete work in the future or complete work into the past in the default scheduling mode. Microsoft Project is ideal for a user who would like to update a schedule with this technique. So for example, this is the schedule before we've updated. Here's the summary bar, and we've got 3 activities. So all you do is you put in the percent complete. You can show the progress line if you want, and this clearly shows that this is behind, but Microsoft Project doesn't show that this is ahead of time. It's just a nature of the way the software works. So it's very, very simple. You put the percent complete column in, and if you go. You can display the status date here, and Microsoft Project ignores the status date when you schedule, unlike Oracle Primavera P6. You can enter the percent complete. It doesn't affect the way the schedule calculates. You can display the progress lines, but the summary percent complete is often misleading because it's calculated from a sum of the detailed task actual durations divided by the detailed task durations. So this percent complete of 43% is 9 plus 3 plus 10 over 10 plus 10 plus 10, because these are 10 days long, each of these activities. So that's where you get the 43%, so the summary percent complete. So if you have 20 milestones underneath the summary activity, after you've punched 100% complete against the first 19 milestones, you'll still have 0, and when you punch 100% against the last milestone, this will go to 100%. So it does get very misleading, the summary percent complete on Microsoft Project. To obtain a correctly updated schedule, the following conditions. That's finished this impacted. Let's go back. So that's finished unimpacted with Microsoft Project. I now want to go to impacted with actuals on Microsoft Project. So to correctly update a schedule, the following conditions must exist. Microsoft Project status date must be set and displayed. The actual dates and actual durations manually must be set in the past. So you've actually got to make sure they're set in the past. The remaining durations must be in the future. So when you put an actual start date in, Microsoft Project doesn't calculate the actual duration up to the status date. All right, so you've got to basically manually enter it, and obviously manually make sure remaining durations in the future. And it's important to understand that a percent complete, if you change the percent complete, it will change the actual duration and remaining duration, resulting in either complete work in the future or incomplete work in the past. Thus, if you want to update a Microsoft Project schedule properly with the actual dates in the past and actual durations in the past and remaining durations in the future, you must never, ever, ever touch the percent complete. The physical percent complete may be used to record progress and display the progress, but you mustn't use the percent complete. The percent complete is incorrectly named. It's actually percent duration complete. So we can see here that this activity here, I've entered an actual start, I've entered the actual duration, and I've entered the remaining duration, and I've done the same for these two. So this is updating this schedule with effectively what's called progress override. So the actual durations in the past, remaining durations in the future, the percent complete is not edited. I have not touched the percent complete. Many software options need to be understood and changed for this process to work, and the options that are outlined in detail in my paper. So if you read the paper, I actually explain step by step how you do this, and I have a template on my website which actually tell you in a user-defined field or calculated field whether you've updated each activity properly. This process in Microsoft Project is difficult and time consuming, and to update a schedule with Microsoft Project takes about 4 times longer, in my opinion, than something like P6 or ASTA, because you have to enter the actual durations manually. There are some tools that are used to assist with updating a project. Microsoft Project, they're complex and difficult to use. There's things like split in progress, update project, update complete work through, update project reschedule incomplete to start after, splitting tasks, status date calculation options when updating a schedule, and details how to use these functions are in my paper. But again, they're all very, very difficult, and all of these generally result in a schedule that is not correctly updated. Okay, finally, impacted live with Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project is almost designed to use this method and has some advantages over other products. The status date may be used to show when the data date may be used to show the data date as Microsoft Project essentially ignores the status date. So you can put this in and Microsoft Project ignores it. It allows multiple splits in the past and the future. You manually put these splits in. And in the picture, the percent completes are 0. You can see here I've put a 0% complete here. So this is scheduling naturally. All right, and I've used the physical percent complete to show the percent complete against the activities. So this is a live schedule. And it's very, very simple to do this in Microsoft Project. And also a number of my more sophisticated customers update the schedule this way rather than using the impacted with actuals, because it's easier with Microsoft Project. So with the advantage of Microsoft Project, it has a high market penetration, and the advantages are sharing data is simple because many companies use it. Many commands are simple to other products, other Microsoft Office products. It's simple to create a small unresourced schedule. It's a desktop application, doesn't incur the high cost of installing, maintaining a database and employing administrators. The issues, though, include but are not limited to: it ignores the status date in the default mode of operation. No views supplied with the default installation will display the status date, so you need to either download a template like the one I have on my website, or some of the other templates are available, but by default it's not there, or you have to turn it on. The finished date is not calculated from the status date plus the remaining duration, so Microsoft Project ignores the status date. It only allows one relationship between two tasks, making it difficult to make a closed CPM network with no open ends. It's difficult to do ladder scheduling without adding an additional milestone at the start of this series of activities. The actual duration is not calculated by the software and has to be calculated manually or by using the function that will actually calculate it for you, which is called mark in progress. The percent complete is linked to the actual duration, remaining duration, and a change of the percent complete field will result in incomplete work displayed in the past or complete work in the future. There are several functions in the software that, if improperly used, will result in an incorrectly updated schedule. The start and finish dates and times of splits of tasks are not available through the user interface. So if you put a split in a task, you can't actually get the start date and time out of the software. A baseline is not really a baseline. It's a copy of some project data. It's not a complete copy of a project, so it doesn't baseline the relationships, the critical path, total float, free float, or any of those. A baseline is just the start date, the finish date, the duration, units, and costs. The management of multiple baselines is difficult because they may not be named, and you can't add notes to individual baselines. You can only add a note to the project file. It's difficult to display more than one baseline bar in Microsoft Project. Very few people understand how Microsoft Project calculates an in-progress schedule, so a number of disadvantages of using Microsoft Project, and it's a very hard product to produce a properly updated schedule. So let's go on now to P6 and have a look at creating an unimpacted program with P6. So this technique could be utilized with P6. I've never utilized it. There's some information in my papers showing how you could do it, but basically Microsoft P6 is not designed and doesn't use this process very well. And one of the main reasons why companies move from Microsoft Project to P6 is so their schedules will not update a schedule using the unimpacted technique, as P6 basically forces users to update a schedule properly using the impacted with actuals. I do outline in my paper how you can do this, but I don't recommend it. So as I say, examples of this technique are outlined in my paper. I spent quite a lot of time trying to work out how to do it. You can do it, but I don't recommend it, and there's no point in buying P6 if you want to use that technique. So then talk about impacted with actuals. This is the way P6 is designed to be used. In actual fact, it's my opinion that P6 is the simplest product on the market to update a program, because you have to enter the actual start and the remaining duration. It's very, very simple to use. It's far easier to update a schedule using impacted with actual than with Microsoft Project. And if you want to, you can put splits, a single split using suspend and resume if you want to in Microsoft in Oracle Primavera P6. So we have the actual duration here. The actual duration is calculated from the actual start to the suspend date, and then we put a resume date here, and then the finish date is from the resume date plus the remaining duration. So that's how you can create a single split in P6. As with other products, it's impacted live. As with other products, it is possible to use this technique with P6, so you can keep a schedule live. So impacted with live is very simple to do. If you want to show the data date, you can move the data date, not reschedule, and it will show you the data dates as well. So as I say, the data date may be used either with the data date not scheduling, or you can use a curtain. A misleading summary percent complete will be valued, will be displayed when a UDF or an integer is used for the percent complete. So you can use a UDF field or as an integer or a number, but you'll end up with a strange figure at the top. What you can do is in actual fact use a text field if you want to input the percent complete in the text field, but then you can't show a percent complete bar on the schedule, so you actually have to use a user-defined field and a percent complete text field together to produce this type of situation here, and I've talked about how you can do that in my article. So these two techniques are outlined in my article if you wish to use the impacted with live and show a percent complete bar and not show a ridiculous summary percent complete. So what are the advantages of P6? The P6 scheduling engine is usually considered the most robust, considered more robust than Microsoft Project. And the advantage of P6, it's far easier and quicker to update a schedule than Microsoft Project. It has the ability to record an unlimited number of baselines, which are complete copies of a project. It has the ability to display and compare 4 baseline bars. It calculates the actual duration from the actual start to the data date, so you don't have to enter that, or the actual duration to the spend date. Changes to the duration, percent complete does not change the actual duration, it only changes the remaining duration, which is how I would like to see it work. It always schedules incomplete work in the future. It allows full relationships between two activities, making creating closed CPM network far simpler in Microsoft Project. So P6 is a far better scheduling engine than Microsoft Project. Disadvantage of P6, it's graphically less powerful than most other products. The default activity views that come with Oracle Primavera P6 have a number of bar formatting issues, and every single activity view that is supplied with P6 needs to be edited before it's used. Users must understand the plan date issues, a number of issues with the plan dates, and I'd like to see them removed from the system. Scheduling does not force actual dates back in the future, which ASTA does, and therefore it's something you've got to manually make sure actual dates are not in the future. Users must always show the time to ensure constraints and actual dates are not entered at irrelevant times. So if you don't show the time and you update a schedule, P6 will put the actual start and the actual finishing constraint times at midnight, which doesn't make sense. The inability to create multiple activity splits, but these can be modeled by either an activity calendar or creating multiple activities to represent the splits. It's not a major issue, it's just a little bit more awkward to do. So let's look at ASTA Power Project. How does ASTA Power Project handle these three processes? So ASTA Power Project is one of the few products that allows all techniques to be used with relative ease. So if you turn on the jagged progress line, which is a technique in ASTA Power Project, it will naturally, you can enter the percent complete and it will show a jagged line here. So that's fairly normal process with with ASTA Power Project, and this is an optional function that may be turned on or off. When you want to use impacted with actuals, well, then you straighten the progress line. It's one of the methods of updating a schedule in ASTA, and it will split the activities, and you can use retained logic, or you can use progress override. You will find when you straighten the progress line, it will put all incomplete work in the future, but also any complete work that you happen to put in the future, it will push back again as well. Actual start dates do get modified, which some people don't like, when there was complete work in the future. So if you have complete work in the future and you straighten the report line, it will move it back into the past. So if you go back up here, you can see that this has got complete work in the future here, complete work in the future when we enter the percent complete, and therefore when we straighten the report line, it split the activity and put it in the past. And straight progress line may be used by default if you wish to. Again, there are many more options with ASTA. At this point, when you've got splits, you can actually see the split start and finish time in ASTA, and you can edit the start and finish time if you want to here, or the duration. So each split is effectively a mini activity once you get into ASTA, which you won't find in Microsoft Project or P6. The duration remaining, which is effectively the remaining duration in P6 or Microsoft Project, may be edited to reflect when the incomplete work could be scheduled in the future. Finally, impacted live with ASTA Power Project. Like many other products, this technique is possible with ASTA Power Project. Obviously, with ASTA Power Project, you can have multiple splits in the past and the future, and these splits will calculate their float individually. Again, ASTA has a lot more scheduling functions than P6 or Microsoft Project. The task % complete could be recorded using a user-defined field if you want to. The % complete, if you use a user % complete, you cannot show the % complete on a bar, so you can't use a user-defined field to show a bar that you can do in P6, and you can't use any of the other % completes like the physical % complete to put an actual start. So this is one of the drawbacks of ASTA Power Project, is that if you're using the impacted live, you can't show the % complete bar. You can see that in ASTA you can show the critical path on the baseline as well as the current schedule. And obviously you can see you can put multiple splits in the past and the future. So the advantage of ASTA Power Project, it has many more schedule functions than either P6 or Microsoft Project. Those features are relevant to the three scheduling techniques. First of all, you can put an unlimited number of links between activities, allowing a partial critical path through activities. So ASTA puts the lead or lag on the activity and not on the relationship, which happens in most US products. So most European products put the lead or lag on the activity, and therefore you can have an unlimited number of relationships between two activities in a partial critical path. It allows multiple splits in the past and future. It allows the imitation of Microsoft Project or P6 scheduling. It has an unlimited number of baselines which may be saved and are complete copies of the project. Up to 10 baseline bars may be displayed. It has multiple report dates, so you set up all your data dates before you start scheduling. You can turn them on or off. You don't have to move the report date forward each month, but if you want to, you can do. You can view all baseline data from the current project view, including data items such as individual resource properties, baseline critical path. So in ASTA Power Project, you can see every single piece of baseline data, whereas in P6, when you look at the baseline labour hours, it adds all the labour hours up from the baseline, so you can't see individual resource labour hours. Disadvantage ASTA Power Project does not have a high market penetration in some countries, and often contracts specify a scheduling package such as P6 or Project which have a high market penetration, making Microsoft Project less likely to be nominated in a contract. ASTA Power Project has many more scheduling functions than either P6 or Project, and as a result takes longer to learn, but this issue may be overcome by the creation of templates and writing of procedures for users to follow. User-definable bars may not be created, and formatting of total float and free float is weaker than other products, so this area is an area that I think could be improved in ASTA. So that's a summary of the three techniques. So this is summarizing the three techniques. Okay, so in conclusion, there are three techniques that may be used to update a schedule, and they've been demonstrated, and in summary it's unimpacted, where a baseline is not set and only the % complete is assigned to the activities and no actual dates are changed in the update process. There's impacted with actuals, a baseline is set, and with this technique actual dates are assigned in the past to completed activities and complete portions of in-progress activities. Unstarted activities and incomplete portions of in-progress activities are scheduled in the future. Scope changes are added and the project should schedule to provide a revised end date. Impacted live, a baseline should be set. The software inbuilt functions of % complete and actual duration, actual start and actual finish fields are not used. Completed activities are manipulated so they're scheduled when they occurred. Generally, you change the duration, add leads or lags to relationships to get the schedule to sit where it actually happened. In-progress activities are adjusted so they start when they actually started and finish when they're planned to finish, and unstarted activities are scheduled into the future and scope changes added. So this technique provides a revised end date for the project. So the disadvantages, unimpacted, this technique provides the status of each activity but does not provide a revised end date for the schedule. It results in a schedule that may not be used for managing a project or claims analysis. Impacted with actual, this is how most software is intended to be used. The schedule may be used for managing a project with this technique, and it opens up the opportunity to perform Windows analysis in a half-step method and the traditional methods of analysing projects for claims. The impacted live, this schedule may be used for managing a project and it maintains an as-built critical path, allowing the collapsed as-built technique to be used to evaluate claims. Also, the removal of delay activities allow the collapsed as-built analysis to be performed on the schedule that's been built during the execution of the project. This is an important point because often people criticize the collapsed as-built method because the schedule is being built well after the project has been completed. But because this is built up over time, this would negate the criticisms of a collapsed as-built Windows analysis not reflecting reality because it was updated on a regular basis and may be reviewed by the customer after each update. Whereas traditionally a collapsed as-built schedule is built by somebody who wasn't involved in the project, a claims analysis person, way after the project's completed. But by doing it as the project is progressing, this makes this schedule far more valid for the collapsed as-built technique. There's a table on the paper that summarizes how each software package supports each updating technique, and I've made a number of comments. So conclusion, a schedule should not be updated using the unimpacted technique because this technique only provides the status of activities against the original plan and may not be used for managing a project or to analyze delays to support an extension of time. So that's my conclusions of an unimpacted technique. And impacted with actuals, a schedule should be updated using impacted with actual when it's required to first of all manage a project with the schedule, analyze delays to support extension of time. The reason for using impacted with actuals it's a method identified in the AACE recommended practice, statusing the CPM schedule. It uses the software in the way it's designed, and this method has wide industry acceptance, and the other two methods are usually not accepted. Impacted with live, this technique has some disadvantage over impacted with actuals. First of all, it does not use the software in the way it's designed, and I've discussed this in the paper. It's a difficult technique to use, significantly more complex than impacted with actuals. The reasons for using it are basically the schedule may be used for managing a project, and it maintains an as-built critical path, allowing the collapsed as-built technique to be used to evaluate claims. And this technique helps negate the criticisms of the collapsed as-built schedule being built later on after the project is finished. The resulting schedule will be useful in providing contemporary and not forensic delay analysis and time impact, including responsibility for the delay. Software suitability for the impacted with actuals technique. We've ascertained that the impacted with actuals technique is the recommended technique because it uses the software in the way it's designed to be used, it complies with the recommended practice, and it's the method that most people expect a program to be updated with. It can be used to manage the project, and it can be used for delay analysis. Microsoft Project obviously has the highest industry penetration, but it is also the most difficult and the most time-consuming one to update a program using the impacted with actuals technique, because it's very simple to end up with a schedule with completed work in the past or incomplete work in the future, which is not the way one would expect to update a program. I find that Microsoft Project takes 4 times longer to update a program than say P6. There are also a number of other problems with Microsoft Project, like it's very difficult to use multiple baselines, the baselines aren't complete schedules, etc., etc. P6 has a wide industry acceptance and provides a straightforward process to update a program using the impacted with actuals. It's designed to use that process to update a project. It is very simple to use. The only two things you need to enter for each activity is the actual start and the remaining duration. You move the data date and reschedule. So this is definitely a very simple product to use compared to other products. AACE Power Project has a lower market penetration, but it has many more scheduling functions than either P6 or Microsoft Project, and scheduling may be simply updated. You may simply update a schedule with the impacted with actuals technique with AACE Power Project, but you have to have more training. You have to understand how to set all the options up on it. So the two products I'd recommend you use is either P6 or AACE Power Project to update a schedule properly with the impacted with actuals technique. So that's the end of my presentation. I wish you luck with the choice of your software, and thank you very much for listening to this presentation.